For 10 years, I'd been secretly in love with Ezra Kane. His voice, deep and magnetic, had always held a quiet power over me. So when he called me up one night, his words spilling through the video chat with that familiar low timbre, I wasn't surprised to feel my heart stutter. "I've never felt this way about anyone, Ivy," he said, his eyes glinting with something I'd never seen before. "Please, help me win her over." Her. My roommate, Sienna Blake. He'd caught a glimpse of her during our call, her auburn hair cascading over her shoulder as she laughed at something off-screen, and that was it. He was hooked. And me? I was just Ivy Wren, his reliable old friend, the one he knew would never say no. To him, I was a sure thing. The scene unfolded like a slow-motion car crash I couldn't look away from. Ezra and Sienna stood in the courtyard outside our dorm, lips locked in a kiss so intense it seemed to burn the air around them. Their hands tangled in each other's hair, their bodies pressed close, oblivious to the world or to me, standing frozen a few feet away, clutching a stack of library books like a lifeline. My chest felt like it had been split open, raw and aching, even though I'd known this was coming. I'd agreed to help him chase her, after all. But knowing didn't dull the shock, didn't stop the flood of grief that left me breathless. They were too wrapped up in each other to notice me. Ezra's voice cut through the stillness of the night, rough and husky. "Come over to my place tonight?" My heart plummeted, sinking into an icy void. Sienna giggled, playfully swatting his chest. "What are you thinking?" I promised Ivy I'd help her with her thesis tonight. Their foreheads touched, and they murmured to each other, words I couldn't catch, but could feel. The intimacy of it stung worse than the cold wind biting at my skin. I watched Sienna head upstairs, her silhouette disappearing into the dorm. Then Ezra turned, and our eyes met. "Ivy." His smile vanished, replaced by something unreadable. I couldn't face him. I jerked my head away, forcing my legs to move toward the dorm, each step heavier than the last. The image of them together seared into my mind, a tidal wave of bitterness and longing crashing over me until I could barely breathe. For a decade, I'd been by Ezra's side, a steady presence he took for granted. To him, I was just a friend, genderless, invisible. I'd never seen him look at anyone the way he'd looked at Sienna tonight. 10 years of pining, and they'd only known each other for 10 days. Our history was a patchwork of missed chances. Back in high school, I'd bombed my college entrance exams and couldn't follow Ezra to his dream university. I retook the test the next year, clawing my way into a decent school, only to mess up my application and end up in a different city. We drifted apart. During those college years, our contact reduced to sporadic texts. Now, with him climbing the corporate ladder and me buried in grad school deadlines, we barely spoke. Whenever I suggested visiting, he'd brush me off. "Ivy, I'm swamped." Video calls were short, clipped, until Sienna stumbled into the frame. It started innocently enough. She'd borrowed my phone to snap a selfie, then scrolled through my photos and paused on one of Ezra, his sharp jawline, those piercing hazel eyes. "He's hot," she'd said, her tone casual but her gaze alight with curiosity. "You know him?" I mumbled something vague and fled the room, my stomach twisting. Sienna was the campus goddess, strikingly beautiful, with a magnetic mix of innocence and allure that turned heads wherever she went. She'd always been aloof, untouchable, brushing off every guy who tried his luck. Until Ezra. 10 days ago, I'd finally worked up the nerve to confess to him. But before I could, he'd spotted Sienna on our call, and his whole demeanor shifted, his eyes softened, his usual sharpness melting into something warm and unguarded. Love at first sight. The next day, he called me again, voice low and earnest. "I've never felt this way about anyone, Ivy. Please, help me win her over." It was the first time he'd ever asked me for anything, the first time he'd called me something soft like Ivy instead of just my name. And like a fool, I said yes. I played matchmaker, feeding him details about Sienna's favorite books, her coffee order, her dry sense of humor. I vouched for him to her, spinning a tale of a guy who'd never fallen for anyone until her. They added each other on social media, and soon they were texting nonstop. Ezra, who'd always been too busy for me, took 3 days off work to visit her. Today was their first official date, and judging by that kiss, they were already inseparable. Back in our dorm, Sienna burst through the door, her cheeks flushed. "Ivy, we're together now," she announced, beaming. "Oh," I said faintly, forcing a smile. "That's great." I turned to my laptop, fumbling with my thesis, mistyping 3 times before getting it right. "Thanks to you, matchmaker extraordinaire," she teased, her voice light. My fingers froze on the keyboard, a sharp pang slicing through me. I'd done this to myself, handed him to her on a silver platter. The next day, they insisted on treating me to dinner as a thank you. At a bustling hot pot restaurant near campus, steam rose from the bubbling broth, curling into the air as Ezra peeled shrimp for Sienna. His long fingers worked with precision, stripping away the shells despite his well-known hatred for the slimy texture, a quirk I'd learned years ago. He'd always refused to peel shrimp for me, even when I'd scalded my hand cooking for his birthday last year. I'd spent hours on that meal, burning myself in the process. When he saw the blister, his expression had been a mix of pity and frustration. "Ivy, you don't have to cook if you're bad at it," he'd said, gently rubbing ointment onto my skin. It was one of the rare times he'd been tender with me, and I'd seized the moment to ask, "My hand's messed up, will you peel shrimp for me later?" He'd frowned, his tone sharp. "You know I hate that stuff, Ivy." I'd ended up peeling them myself, tears streaming down my face as he watched in silence. Now, here he was, peeling shrimp for Sienna without a hint of complaint, wiping his hands with a napkin before meeting my gaze. His eyes were cold, deliberate. He was showing me rubbing salt in a wound he'd known about all along. He'd figured out my feelings years ago and chosen to ignore them, keeping me at arm's length until Sienna came along. This dinner was his final message. Give up. I stared at my untouched food, hands trembling around my chopsticks, until a commotion broke my trance. A flustered guy from another table approached, stammering an apology to Ezra. Apparently, he'd lost a dare and had to ask the prettiest girl in the room for her number, Sienna, of course. Ezra's jaw tightened, but he stayed composed as the guy retreated. Sienna, flushed from the spicy broth, laughed it off, her beauty drawing every eye in the room. Then another figure approached, a tall, broad-shouldered guy with a determined stride. I braced myself for another awkward scene, but he stopped in front of me. "Hey, senior," he said, his voice shaky but his smile bright. Can I pursue you?" I blinked, stunned, glancing at Ezra instinctively. His face was a mask of ice, colder than I'd ever seen it. Before I could process it, the guy, Theo Hart, as I'd later learn, stammered again. Can you? Wait, no, can I chase you?" The crowd around us erupted in laughter, and his face turned beet red. "Yes," I said, cutting through the noise. I didn't look at Ezra this time. Theo's eyes widened, his blush deepening, and in the chaos, I felt something shift inside me, a quiet, unexpected calm. Theo turned out to be the kind of person who blushed at everything. After my impulsive yes, he grabbed my hand and pulled me out of the restaurant, dragging me to a nearby dessert shop. He ordered half the menu, cakes, tarts, a towering sundae, and shoved them toward me, mumbling, "You didn't eat much back there. They say sweets make you feel better." I stared at him, at the way he fidgeted with his spoon, and realized he'd been watching me all night, seeing the hurt I'd tried to hide. My heart gave a small, tentative thud. We spent the evening wandering the campus, his hand brushing mine until he finally worked up the courage to hold it under the glow of a fiery sunset. Later, Ezra texted me, "Where are you?" I didn't reply. For once, I let the silence speak for me. The next morning, I woke to the sound of Sienna unlocking the dorm door. She looked wrecked, pale, hollow-eyed, her usual vibrance drained. "He's back at work," she said, her voice flat. I reached out to check her forehead, but she flinched away. I'm fine. She stared at me, then added, we slept together. A flicker of something guilt, maybe, crossed her face before she asked, you and Theo, is that going anywhere? I thought about it, really thought about it, then smiled. Yeah, it could. Relief washed over her, softening her tense shoulders. Downstairs, Theo waited for me with breakfast, soy milk, buns, and porridge, his shy grin lighting up the morning. I wasn't sure what you liked, he said, blushing again. Pick whatever. I'll take the rest. Porridge, I said, and watched his face turn scarlet, a mirror to the warmth blooming in my chest. I never expected Theo Hart to take me to an aquarium. The lights inside were dim, casting a soft, otherworldly glow over the winding tunnels. Fake seaweed swayed gently along the walls, interspersed with vibrant coral displays. Schools of fish darted near the glass there, silvery bodies catching the light as they hovered, seemingly curious about the humans passing through. I tapped the tank lightly, and a tiny, translucent jellyfish zipped away in a panic. A smile tugged at my lips. I turned to say something to Theo, only to catch him snapping a photo of me with his phone. Raising an eyebrow, I leaned in. Let me see. It was a candid half-body shot. I stood in a white dress, my collarbone and shoulders bare, my pale skin glowing against the deep blue of the water behind me. A few strands of hair floated, loose, adding a natural, tousled charm. The lighting was perfect, soft yet striking, and the angle flattered me in a way I hadn't expected. Whoever took it knew what they were doing. Tilting my head, I grinned. Didn't know you were such a pro at, my words cut off mid-sentence. Theo's dark eyes locked onto mine, closer than I'd realized. Too close. I could feel the tension in his frame, the heat of his breath brushing my skin, and the faint, clean scent of him, like cedar and something warm. My face flushed, my pulse racing as the air between us thickened. Around 6:30 p.m., we hopped on a bus back to campus. The windows were cracked open, letting in a rush of cool wind that roared in my ears. My mind kept replaying that moment, his lips hovering near mine, only to pull back at the last second, restrained. He'd been breathing hard, his voice low and earnest. I can wait. I glanced at him now, sitting ramrod straight beside me, staring ahead like some paragon of virtue. I almost laughed. Last night, after getting back to the dorm, I dug through the campus forum and found a treasure trove of posts about him, girls confessing their crushes, others detailing his accolades, debate team captain, a slew of academic awards, even a regional photography contest win. He was a catch. After a while, I broke the silence. Why me? He blinked, caught off guard. I pressed on, biting my lip. You're amazing. Why would you like someone like me? His brows knit together, his face taking on a seriousness I hadn't seen before. Ivy, why would you even think that? I didn't answer, just held his gaze. His lips tightened briefly before he sighed. The first time I saw you wasn't at the hot pot place. It was here, at the aquarium. I frowned. The aquarium? He nodded, his voice softening. You were holding 2 sticks of candied hawthorn, waiting for someone. I watched your expression shift, from hope to disappointment. Your eyes got red, but you held it together. Then a little girl bumped into you. Started crying, and you knelt down, fumbling with tissues to wipe her tears. Next thing I knew, you were crying too, both of you wiping each other's faces, sniffling. When you ran out of steam, you split the hawthorn sticks and ate them together. He paused, a flush creeping up his neck. You looked pitiful, but so damn cute. My cheeks burned as the memory rushed back. That day, Ezra Kane had been in town for work. He'd promised to meet me at the aquarium after his meetings, a rare sliver of time I'd clung to. Like a lifeline. I'd waited for hours, buzzing with anticipation, only to get a curt text. Sorry, overslept. Can't miss my train. Heading out? He'd never once spent his schedule for me. I tilted my head back, meeting Theo's steady gaze. I had no idea you were there. He smiled faintly. Later, at a finance lecture on campus, I saw you speaking on stage. That's when I learned your name, Ivy Wren, a year ahead of me in the finance department. It was past 9 p.m. when I got back to the dorm. The room was dark, the lights off, and Sienna seemed to have crashed early, unusual for her. I didn't bother flipping the switch. Instead, I collapsed onto my bed, burying my face in the pillow as a storm of emotions churned inside me. Today hit me hard. All those years chasing Ezra, I'd been drowning in self-doubt. I'd tried so hard to be enough, but his indifference, his casual dismissals and fleeting teases wore me down. I'd built a cocoon around myself, shrinking into it, convinced I'd never shine. Until Theo showed up, patiently proving me wrong, telling me with quiet conviction, "You're worth it." Why wouldn't I like you? Something in my chest sparked, then spread, a slow, warm glow. I grabbed my phone, opened my social media, and posted the photo Theo took, captioning it, "You're pretty great too." Seconds later, Ezra messaged me, "You took him to that aquarium? Then, are you with him now?" The accusation in his words was unmistakable, laced with a bitter edge, like he had any right to care. My heart skipped, but before I could respond, my phone lit up with his call. That number, etched into my soul after a decade, stared back at me. Once, a single lazy text from him would have sent me over the moon. Now, I felt nothing but a strange resistance. I didn't even want to hear his voice. I let it ring, watching the screen until it went dark. He called again. And again. Each time, I hung up without a word. Finally, annoyed, I typed, "I'm in the dorm. Your girlfriend's asleep." That shut him up. Over the next few weeks, Theo and I grew closer. We ate meals together, studied in the library, strolled the campus track, caught new movies. Silence between us was comfortable, conversation endless. We were teetering on the edge of something real, just one step from breaking through. Meanwhile, Ezra and Sienna's honeymoon phase seemed to unravel. The late-night calls stopped, their clingy spark fading like a receding tide. Sienna played it cool during the day, all smiles and breezy chatter, but I'd catch her stifled sobs in the dead of night. I had a hunch it was about me. After some hesitation, I unblocked Ezra and called him. He picked up fast, his voice rough. "Ivy, you're finally talking to me." I froze. That line, I'd said it to him so many times, fragile and desperate, stripping away my pride to beg for scraps of his attention. Now, picturing Theo's gentle face, I felt a soft smile creep up instead. "Ivy? You there?" Ezra's voice grew hoarser. "Yeah," I said, snapping back. "What did you say?" Silence stretched across the line. Then I spoke, calm and clear. "Ezra, I liked you for 10 years. His breathing hitched. I know. Hearing it stung, a dull, fleeting ache, not for him, but for the naive girl who'd wasted a decade on him. I steadied myself. But after that dinner, I realized I don't anymore. I wish you and Sienna the best. And me? I've found someone I want to hold on to. I sighed lightly. We should both cherish who we've got, Ezra. He didn't respond for a long time. When he finally did, his tone was oddly certain, almost relieved. Ivy, are you with him to get back at me? That question gnawed at me, not out of guilt, but sheer frustration. How low had I sunk in those 10 years that Ezra assumed I'd weaponize my own happiness to spite him? I'd blocked him again after that, but the irritation lingered. Tonight, Theo and I were walking back from a movie when his words flashed through my mind again. Distracted, I tripped over a stone, my knee buckling. Theo's hands caught me, steadying me with a worried look. You okay? I nodded, but a sharp twinge shot through my ankle. Think I twisted it. He guided me to a bench, kneeling to check. No dislocation, good. Let me rub it out. Before I could protest, his cool fingers pressed into my skin, kneading gently. A tingle ran up my leg, and I let out a quick, ah. He froze, his throat bobbing as he swallowed hard. My face heated up. The pain eased eventually, and he looked up. Still hurt. And no, I stammered, my voice scratchy. He smiled faintly, setting my foot down. Under the moonlight, his features stood out, deep eyes, sharp nose, red lips, his gaze unwavering. Then it happened. I don't know who moved first, but suddenly my arms were around his neck, his hands on my waist. Our first kiss, soft, urgent, perfect. When we pulled apart, he was panting, his eyes blazing. Ivy, my name on his lips snapped something inside me, and I melted into him again, until a rough hand yanked me off the bench. I yelped, pain flaring in my arm as I stumbled. Turning, I met Ezra's bloodshot glare. He looked furious, betrayed, like I'd owed him something. It was absurd. For 10 years, he'd taken my devotion for granted, brushing me off while I lingered in his shadow. The second I stepped away, he bristled, as if my happiness was a personal affront. He could cut me out, draw lines, but I wasn't allowed to move on. His grip tightened, bruising my arm. I winced, trying to pull free, but he held firm. His eyes flicked to Theo, dark with something feral, like he wanted to tear him apart. I stepped between them, shielding Theo. Ezra faltered, his gaze reddening. Ivy, we've known each other 10 years. You've known him, what, a month? And you're protecting him? He's my boyfriend, I said flatly. He went still, lips paling. You're hurting my arm, I added. He let go slowly, and the second he did, my ankle gave out, twisted worse from his yank. I staggered into Theo's arms, pain searing up my leg. Glancing down, I saw the swelling. Dislocated this time, for sure. A laugh bubbled up, sharp and bitter. Ezra stared at my ankle, panic flickering in his eyes. I'm sorry, he muttered. I ignored him, tugging Theo's sleeve. Hospital, please. Theo crouched. Hop on, I'll carry you. As I climbed onto his back, Ezra's hand shot out, trembling, stopping just short of my wrist. His eyes, usually so cold, looked lost. I'll drive you, he rasped. No thanks, I said, resting my head on Theo's shoulder as he carried me away. At the corner, I glanced back. Ezra stood there, white shirt stark against the night, a tall, lonely figure radiating defeat. At the hospital, the doctor reset my ankle, prescribed some meds, and gave us a bland warning about rest. No strenuous activity for 2 weeks. My face was still red when Theo suggested, move into my place for a bit. Your dorm's on the 4th floor, no elevator. My rental's got one, and I can look after you during the day. At night, I'll crash at the dorm. My heart thudded, but I mumbled a shy okay. Back at the dorm by 11:30 p.m., Ezra was still there, lingering like a ghost. He opened his mouth, but I turned away. Theo spoke up. Ivy, just pack some clothes tonight. I've got everything else at my place. I'll pick you up tomorrow. I nodded. Sounds good. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Ezra flinch. Sienna didn't bat an eye when I told her about moving. Theo's a good guy, she said with a small smile. I hesitated, then asked you and Ezra. Over, she replied, calm as ever. That night he called you 13 times? That was it for me. I dumped him the next day. I blinked. How'd you? Your ring owned for him, she said, lips quirking. Lovestory. I noticed it ages ago. Then it stopped. Either you changed it or blocked him. I nodded. I'd swapped it for go away that night. She studied me, then sighed. Ivy, he didn't deserve me. And he sure as hell didn't deserve you. Theo was a natural caretaker. In 2 weeks at his place, while I prepped for my thesis defense, he cooked, we gamed, and I gained a solid 5 pounds. Glaring at my reflection one day, I pounced on him, burying my face in his chest. When my ankles healed, I'm dieting. He just chuckled, peeling an orange and popping a slice in my mouth. That night, a storm rolled in. As Theo grabbed an umbrella to leave, I murmured, stay tonight. He paused, searching my face. When I didn't back down, he gripped the umbrella tighter, voice low. Okay. A thunderclap woke me at midnight. Theo slept soundly beside me, and I smiled until I noticed the window ajar, rain misting in. My ankle was nearly healed. I didn't need the clunky cast shoe he'd bought me anymore. Slipping on a nightgown, I shuffled over to close it and froze. Down below, under a flickering street lamp, stood Ezra. His face was pale, cigarette glowing between his fingers. In 10 years, I'd only seen him smoke when he was unraveling. Lately, he'd been haunting my neighborhood every weekend, aimless, like he'd lost his job or his mind. He looked up, our eyes meeting briefly. I shut the window, drew the curtains, and poured myself water in the living room. Then my phone rang, a random number. I sighed, answering it. Ivy. Ivy. His voice was raw, broken, repeating my name like a plea. A pang hit me, not love, not hate, just a dry, hollow sadness. I thought of Lovestory, 'cause we were both young when I first saw you. Back then, his aloofness had drawn me in. I'd linger outside his classroom, study until my eyes burned just to get closer. I didn't care. If he noticed, I was happy just to see him. Over time, I'd worshipped him, tiptoeing around his indifference. He never pushed me away. Never pulled me in. The hurt he caused eventually matched the awe he'd once inspired. Now, hearing him call my name, it all evaporated. Ezra, I said, steady, I really, really liked you once. But now I really, really don't. I hung up, climbed back into bed, and felt Theo's arm slide around my waist, tugging me close. There's a new fish noodle spot downstairs, he murmured, voice casual but tinged with grit. 10-year-old recipe, killer reviews. Breakfast tomorrow. I smirked, catching his drift. No way. He ruffled my hair. What, no fish noodles? Grinning, I hooked my arms around his neck. Nope. I'm a porridge girl. He laughed, and I knew, whatever shadows lingered, Theo's light was enough to chase them off.